We have two identical houses, each spanning a generous 2,500 square feet, situated on identical lots. However, despite their apparent similarities, they come with completely different construction costs. Today, we'll meticulously track how a seemingly modest $400,000 house ultimately transformed into almost. Well, we'll delve into the full details later in our discussion. And the most surprising thing is that the huge jump in costs happened where I least expected it. So let's start with the foundation. Any house construction begins with the basic foundation. If you look at these two pictures, we have a straightforward house on a flat lot, and here there will be a standard slab. You'd think two identical houses, 2,500 square feet, how much could it cost to just pour a simple straight foundation? The cost should be the same, but no. If you're building the most basic, simple, inexpensive house, the foundation will cost less. If you're building a more modern, customized house, and your client or you, as the client, want to add extra foundation elements, such as an entryway, entry steps, or, for example, a backyard with a concrete slab instead of just a deck like in standard houses, then your foundation will cost more. I calculated it, and the difference between these two houses came out to $20,000 more for the foundation of this house compared to that one. The difference turned out to be that here we included a lot of elements such as terraces, and these terraces had to be poured with concrete. Accordingly, this costs more. In cheaper houses, sometimes a strip foundation is used or just supports are installed on which the structures are placed, and accordingly, this will cost less. It could even be $20,000, $30,000 or $40,000 cheaper if you don't do a slab. There are pros and cons to this technology. On the one hand, you'll save $30,000 to $40,000 if you don't put in a slab in your house. But on the other hand, when you move around the house, you'll feel like you're walking on a wooden floor. In other words, you don't get the same sense of a stable foundation as you do with a slab. Similarly, during hot or cold weather, with a technology where you use a strip foundation with wooden joists or piers, that is, point footings with joists, you will constantly feel either warmth if it's hot because there's an empty space underneath, and even if it's ventilated, it either heats up or cools down in winter. Also, under this type of foundation, insects, snakes, and sometimes even animals are likely to live. Even if you seal it off, they will still find a gap and get inside. Conclusion: in expensive luxury homes, there will always be a slab, meaning a concrete foundation with a solid concrete slab. In cheaper homes, you might find a wooden floor on joists and a space between the floor and the ground. So the difference at the first stage, at the foundation stage, is approximately $30,000 to $40,000. The second stage, where the difference appears, is the house frame. In economy class homes, you'll most likely find a fairly standard frame that uses what's called a pitch roof or a gable roof. They will definitely use 2x4s. There won't be any metal structures inside this house because the gable roof already forms a triangle, making the house frame quite sturdy and solid. There also won't be any large spans for windows here. Accordingly, the headers will be standard and simple. And as a rule, you'll spend about $50,000 on the frame of an economy class house. This will include the cost of both labor and materials. But if we're talking about a luxury class high-end home, where you have a unique design these days, cantilevers and various projecting elements like canopies are in fashion, right? In other words, terraces covered with awnings. So you have many different terraces. In this type of frame, metal elements will definitely be used, which immediately increases the cost. In this frame, the exterior walls are most likely to be 2x6. In this frame, since it's a flat roof, the trusses will be more robust, and that's always more expensive. In this frame, the headers are more substantial. These are above the window's end, that's always more expensive. So the framing part of a luxury home increases significantly due to the design, and because the client wants more features in their house. So if we previously said that you could fit within $50,000 to build a standard 2,500 square foot house out of 2x4s, with minimal effort, labor and lumber, here the frame cost rises to $100,000 or even more, and the difference becomes enormous. The difference is $50,000 or even $70,000 just for the frame due to the elements I just mentioned. In a luxury home like the one we're in now, there will definitely be metal elements, for example this I-beam that supports the space of the second floor. So here the client wanted to create an open space. To create an open space, we need to support this second floor at a certain distance without columns. And with large spans, as a rule, luxury clients ask for large distances or some kind of overhangs. Like here, look, cantilever, right? So part of this roof, this canopy, is practically standing without columns. We have columns on the left and a column on the right, and almost 30 feet, more than 30 feet are just hanging in the air. You can't do without metal here. Similarly, for the exterior walls in economy class, as I mentioned before, we use 2x4s, but here we use 2x6s. And well, not because we just want to, but because 2x6s provide better insulation, are more reliable, and are less prone to warping than 2x4s. With 2x6s, I can add more interior insulation, right? So 2x6s offer more possibilities for home design and more options for the future use of the house from the client's perspective. So you'll get better insulation, better energy efficiency, and with 2x6s you can build taller walls. 2x4s don't allow you to make walls higher than about 9 or 10 feet. So the difference between the economy class frame, which we estimated at $50,000, and the frame for a luxury home, as shown in this picture, is more than $50,000. For this house, you'll pay $100,000 to $120,000, while for an economy class house, you'll pay about $50,000 for the frame. The third part is the windows. This is my favorite topic. And here, I was shocked at how the price difference can reach up to 10 times. For example, in an economy class house, the windows will most likely be standard ones that you buy at Home Depot or Lowe's or just from another supplier. These windows will be small in size. As a rule, these are metal plastic windows with a basic opening mechanism. But if you want to install a large window, like a big slider, your price will most likely jump several times right away. In addition, the installation of standard windows and custom-made windows, windows that you order specifically, will be completely different. If you are building an economy class house, these windows will be included in the cost of the frame. That is, frame manufacturers will include the installation of standard windows in the cost of producing the frame. However, if you order custom windows, you will most likely have to pay for them separately, because these windows need to be installed by professionals of a different level, and they will charge separately for that. For example, for the windows we installed in this house, we paid $15,000 just for the installation. As for the windows between this house and that one, the difference can reach, as I already mentioned, up to 10 times. For example, for windows in an economy class house, you will pay from $15,000 to $25,000. It depends on how many slider doors you have in this house, in this project. For the windows that we installed in this house, we paid $100,000 plus $12,000 for installation. So the difference is $20,000 versus $100,000. That's a five-fold difference. The fourth part of the house, where the price increases even more, is the roof. They can be of completely different types. It could be shingle rows, it could be TPO, it could be a metal roof or ceramic. Everything depends on the client's choice and the design. So, in an economy class house, you will most likely find shingle roofing, that is asphalt shingles, which will be applied to your sloped roof. In a luxury class house, most likely you will either have a flat roof, which cannot be done with shingle roofing. Only TPO covering will allow you to make such a roof. Or it will be a metal roof, as in this example. Here, the roof is almost flat. There is a slight slope, and that made it possible to use metal for it. Or it could be ceramic tiles in a luxury home. The difference, guys, often reaches 3 to 4 times. In this example, this roof would cost about $20,000. This roof cost us $40,000. So that's a twofold difference. Certain types of roofs, like tiles for example, are very heavy. And even to install this roof, you need to change the structural framework. That is, the framing elements need to be more robust. So when a structural engineer asks you what kind of roof you have, it's not just a random question, it's to design your roof properly, because ceramic tiles are quite heavy. Gutters and downspouts. You often won't see these on an eco home, and it was a surprise to me. When we were selling our houses, we were often asked, do you have gutters and downspouts installed? That was unexpected for me. Why wouldn't they be installed? After all, water flows and drains, and it needs to be directed to the right place. But often, in economy class houses, they're not even installed. And here you can see that there isn't a single gutter or downspout in the project at all. So the difference here can also amount to an extra $3,000 to $5,000, simply depending on whether you install them or not. Of course, if you want to install unique gutters with heating, if you have cold seasons, or with leaf guards, meaning a special mesh is installed to keep out leaves, then gutters and downspouts can cost up to $10,000 or even $15,000. This is also an additional expense for your home. And here we move on to the fifth stage. This is mechanical, electrical, plumbing works, where it might seem, what difference could there be if these guys work according to codes and the wires and pipes are all the same? But no, there is a difference here as well. For example, air conditioning. You can use a standard local brand like Carrier, or you can go with, for instance, Mitsubishi, which is almost 50% more expensive. You can use standard one-stage air conditioning units, or you can opt for two-stage, more efficient units, and that also adds an extra $5,000 to $6,000 for just one unit. If you look at the electrical work, it's the same. You can run the wires, install the boxes, that of course will be almost the same. But as soon as you move on to all the fixtures, the lights, the difference can be tenfold, because a single light bought at Home Depot might cost $100, for example, while a custom light can cost $1,000 or even $5,000. It's the same story with plumbing. You can use different types of pipes, and here the difference will be minor. When we move on to plumbing, it also seems like everything is the same. But as soon as you start installing fixtures, the price immediately goes up. For example, a faucet might cost just $50 at Home Depot, but you can also order a faucet for $500 or even $1,000 and then wait several months for delivery. The difference, where it seems like the codes dictate the requirements and the price should be the same, can actually be 2 or 3 times more expensive. In this particular example, if you carefully add up the essential plumbing systems, the intricate electrical wiring, and the comprehensive air conditioning units, the total cost for these 3 crucial elements within this luxurious house ultimately came to an approximate sum of $50,000. In this economy class house, the entire installation of plumbing, air conditioning, and electrical systems cost about $70,000 to $80,000, including the fixtures that were installed. In this house, everything cost over $100,000. Here, more customized fixtures were used, as well as air conditioning systems. And finally, the interior and exterior finishing materials, where your imagination and budget can just explode. Of course, everything starts with the design. When you create the design for your home, you can choose orange peel, interior trim, or a smooth finish. You can simply finish your house with hardy panels and use a bit of brick as accents. Or you can go all out with expensive stucco and add aluminum panels as decorative elements. In other words, every wish you have will cost you extra money. Finishing materials for an economy class house, both inside and out, will cost you from $100,000 to $150,000. Meanwhile, in a luxury home like this one, finishing materials can easily skyrocket to $300,000 or even $400,000. It all depends on your preferences, budget, and imagination. And finally, the last thing where I absolutely did not expect such a budget explosion is, of course, all the customization or your personal wants. When you build a house for yourself, every want you have will cost you money. For example, if you want a house with a flat roof, you will immediately face the question, which structural engineer will design your flat roof for you? If you don't want to see columns in your backyard, that makes your design more expensive, and the structural engineer, who will also cost you money, will further increase your budget. For example, you can simply buy this frame and this design online for $1,000. But if you want to create something unique, the price immediately jumps to tens of thousands of dollars, because you have to pay for a custom design. Any of your wants, for example, heated floors, adds to your expenses. Any of your wants, like a smart home system, increases your budget. Or if you decide you want to install a bar, that immediately adds a huge amount to your cost. Most likely, in an economy class house, you won't have bars or any large complex terraces with cantilevers, awnings, or canopies. You avoid these things in order to keep your budget in check. In a luxury class house, most likely, all of this will increase your budget. And here, it's impossible to predict. Why did I say that I didn't expect this? Because every wish you have, every I want, increases the budget by several times. And the main lesson, a house is not a single massive expense. It's 1,000 small elements and decisions that add up to a different budget for an economy house and for a luxury house. The difference can reach $500,000 or sometimes even $1 million with absolutely identical starting conditions. And the most expensive part is not what you see, but what you don't see. And when you start building a house, decide what is truly important to you and what is just your I want. Because when the meter starts ticking up, it's very hard to stop it.